Meet Wilson, a new resident to the Constant who unfortunately has a problem. His base is a mess, full of clutter, unorganized, and so chaotic that he has a hard time getting anything done, and winter is just around the corner. Luckily for him, he's about to be visited by tidying expert Marie Willow, a pyromaniac who will gleefully torch his base whenever she gets a bit scared. With a flick of her lighter, his home will go up in flames, clearing out the clutter and structures. On the bright side, maybe he'll be able to rebuild with better organization. Unless, of course, he starves first. Hey there, my name is Salandrak and welcome to the second episode in my Don't Starve Beginner's Guide series. This series is intended for players who are new to the world of Don't Starve or struggling to survive past their first year, in which I'll be going over basic game mechanics and survival principles to help you on your journey. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about early game base building. In particular, we'll discuss what structures you'll want to include in your early game base, and some layout tips and organizational ideas. Do note that there is a lot of personal preference involved in base building, and to that end, you are encouraged to experiment and try new things to figure out what works best for you as an individual gamer. With all that out of the way, let's get started on the episode. A good base can be the foundation from which all your adventures will succeed, while a bad base will promote finding an early grave. This is in part due to the fact that time itself is one of the precious resources that must be managed to ensure your survival. There are a lot of tasks you'll need to perform at your base, and the more efficiently you can do them, the more time you'll have available for other activities. For example, you'll need to have the infrastructure in place for organizing materials for crafting, a good kitchen set up for food storage and production, and as you continue to build up your base, there are a variety of food and resource farming methods you may want to experiment with. As we discussed in episode 1 of this series, the first things you'll want to do in any new game is gather survival and base building materials while exploring the world. But once you've sufficiently explored and picked a spot for a base, it's time to start putting down some roots. The highest priority items for any base in a new world are typically the following structures: a fire pit for protection against darkness and winter's cold, an alchemy engine to allow prototyping of additional items and structures, and a crock pot to kickstart better food production. You'll also likely want to build a storage chest right away to free up some of your character's inventory space, unless you don't mind clutter all over the ground. And because most structures are flammable and can be ignited by lightning during a heavy rainstorm, it's a good idea to build a lightning rod ASAP. Although lightning is most common in the spring, it can also happen during rainstorms in the fall and summer, so making a lightning rod is definitely one of those ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure types of things. If you didn't pre-craft an alchemy engine while exploring the world, you'll need to first make a science machine in order to unlock the recipe. Once you've crafted the alchemy engine, go ahead and smash the science machine, as it is completely unnecessary once the alchemy engine is down. The only other crafting station you might want to build early on is the prestidigitator, which requires 4 rabbits, 4 boards, and a silk hat made from 6 spider webs. This will give you access to the magic tab, which has a lot of fun and powerful items in it. However, when you're new to the game, you'll probably be better off focusing on other parts of your base, like your kitchen, and waiting until later to delve into the dark arts. For layout, I personally like to have my crafting stations to the right of my fire pit, my crock pot and future kitchen to the left, and my storage chests right below. That way, with a good fire burning, I can cook, craft, and organize materials during the night. Note that if you're going to be staying at your base in the summer, you'll want to leave room for an endothermic fire pit, and will also need to protect all things flammable with ice phlegmatics. That said, when you're new to the game, I recommend spending summer as a nomad and or setting up a small summer base in or near the desert, but those are topics for later videos. Once you've got the basic elements of your base constructed, you'll likely spend the rest of fall fleshing out your base while continuing to explore the world and preparing for winter. The main components you'll want to have in place before the seasons change are basically just expansions of the basics you've already built, and include the following: a full kitchen, additional storage, and food and resource production. Let's discuss them one by one. As the saying goes, the kitchen is the heart of every home, and without a doubt, a good kitchen is a key component of a good base. Your kitchen will allow you to maximize the nutritional benefits of your raw food items, thereby allowing you to efficiently manipulate your character's hunger, sanity, and health, and ensure that you live up to the game's title and don't starve. The heart of the kitchen is your crock pots and ice boxes, where you'll store and combine your food into tasty dishes that, if done right, will greatly enhance the nutritional properties of your ingredients. Stated differently, a good crock pot meal is definitely greater than the sum of its parts. To make your crock pots, each one will need 3 cut stone, 6 charcoal, and 6 twigs. The easiest way to quickly stock up on lots of charcoal is to find a dense forest and go arsonist on it. You'll need a decent amount of charcoal throughout the game, so feel free to burn a bigger forest, but it's a good idea to remove anything you might want to keep first, such as sapling trees or pig houses. Go ahead and also clear out any spider dens in the burn area, as you'll be needing the webs anyways. You can also plant tight clusters of trees somewhere near your base and then torch them once they've sprouted, but just be sure not to do it too close to anything else that's flammable. Iceboxes are made with 1 board, 1 gear, and 2 gold nuggets, and in addition to their storage function, will reduce the food spoilage rate by half so your foods will last longer. The gears are generally the limiting factor for new players, as they require killing clockworks or getting lucky and finding some from tumbleweeds or digging up graves. In single player, there are always 5 clockworks at the wooden things set piece, each of which drops 2 gears when slain. Clockworks can also sometimes be found at random set pieces scattered throughout the world. Definitely kill at least 1 clockwork during your initial exploration, though more is fine, but make sure you're wearing armor before engaging. They're pretty easy to take down as long as you do them one at a time. I personally like to put 3 crock pots in a semicircle arrangement with 2 iceboxes in the middle. Placed right, you can access all 3 pots from either icebox, which is great for quickly transferring ingredients back and forth by holding the shift key and left clicking. I'll keep crockpot meal ingredients in one fridge and completed meals and other items I don't often use in the crockpots in the other. Note that it's easier to get this arrangement to fit if you place the crockpots before the iceboxes, though it can take some practice and trial and error. In addition to iceboxes and crockpots, another extremely helpful structure to construct as soon as possible is the bird cage. It's made with 6 gold, 2 seeds, and 2 papyrus, which is refined from reeds from the swamp. In order to get a bird for your cage, you'll also need a bird trap, which requires 3 twigs and 4 spider webs. Simply place the trap on the ground, optionally bait it with seeds, and wait for a bird to land on it and get trapped. You then place the bird into the cage, where he'll thereafter provide the extremely useful service of converting meat into eggs. This is particularly useful for excess monster meat, though monster meat needs to be cooked on a fire before the bird will eat it. This process converts stale or spoiled meat foods, including meaty crockpot meals, into 100% fresh eggs, and the eggs can be used to make tasty dishes like bacon and eggs and pierogi. The eggs can also be given to the Pig King for 1 gold nugget each, and if allowed to spoil, can be used to make gunpowder, which, though fairly resource intensive, can be used to blow up or significantly weaken monsters like the Dragonfly or Ancient Guardian. The bird cage can also be used to propagate specific farm crops by feeding various fruits and vegetables to the bird, which will then pop out various amounts of seeds, including seeds specific to the food it was just fed. However, gardens are generally considered an inefficient food source, and I don't recommend building them early on, though it can be a fun activity to do later. The last must-have kitchen structure I like to always build as soon as possible is at least a pair of drying racks. Each drying rack takes 3 twigs, 2 charcoal, and 3 rope. And these bad boys allow you to turn meat into jerky, which greatly enhances the nutritional value of meats while also significantly improving the shelf life. Thereafter, the jerky can be eaten as a standalone food that fills as much hunger as the cooked version while also sporting great sanity restoration and healing properties. Although I usually build a pair of racks as soon as possible, I'll usually expand my jerky factory to include at least 8 racks. This will allow me to dry all the meat from a qualifiant or a pair of beefalo all at the same time. Before we shift gears to talk about storage, let's talk a bit about ways to produce or gather food at or near your base. From my first video, you already learned that butterflies are a great food source, but did you know that butterfly wings can also be used as filler items in your crockpot for dishes like meatballs? They can also be combined with 1 mushroom or carrot and 2 twigs to make butter muffins. For that reason, you shouldn't pick any flowers in the area around your base, and some would argue that you shouldn't pick flowers ever, as there are better ways to restore sanity. Berries are also a great filler food, and if you don't have any berry bushes near your base, they can be dug up with a shovel and replanted at a better location, though they will need to be fertilized with rot or manure before they'll start producing again. For meat, depending on what's close by your base, beefalo or tall birds can be hunted, rabbits or frogs can be trapped, and you can get fish out of ponds. Birds can be killed with boomerangs, and moleworms can be baited by putting a rock or flint on the ground and then hitting Ctrl F when they come up. If there aren't any moleworms by your base, they can be relocated by hitting them once with a hammer, digging up their burrows, and then dropping the live moleworm on the ground at a more convenient location. He'll scurry off to make a new burrow and can thereafter be farmed for morsels. Just make sure the burrow has been made before you kill him, and he'll respawn in about 3 days. Another great meat option is to build a couple of pig houses nearby. The pigmen have a 75% chance to drop 1 meat and a 25% chance to drop a pigskin, but if you feed a pig 4 monster meats, he'll turn into a werepig that, when killed, always drops 2 meat and 1 pigskin. Having pigs nearby is also a good source of free labor. If you feed a pig some meat, he'll become your friend and will thereafter assist with chopping down trees. They can also be enlisted to help in fights, such as taking down a Yucus or Varg, and dealing with hound attacks. Easiest way to gather materials for pig houses is to smash existing pig houses with a hammer, particularly remotely located ones in areas like forests that you aren't likely to spend much time in. 2 smashed houses will give you the materials to make a new house. One of the most useful food resources to have located near your base is actually 1 or 2 spider dens. Hunting the spiders will provide plenty of monster meat, webs, and spider glands, and periodically breaking a level 3 den will really boost your web stores while also dropping a nest that can be replanted to make a new level 1 den. If you don't have any spiders near your base at the start, it might be worth searching the world to find a level 3 den, breaking it, then replanting the nest near your home. Just be sure to put it a few screens away so you don't get too many nighttime visitors. And finally, the last food production resource I'll mention is the bee box. Honey is an extremely useful food item that can be used to make a wide variety of crock pot foods, is quite nutritious raw, and has extremely long shelf life of 40 days. It can also be combined with paper to make a honey poultice, which is a great healing item. But although it is perfectly viable to rush and make honey farms early in the game, I don't recommend it for new players, as you'll most likely get better results focusing on the other things we've just discussed. But do keep those bee boxes and honey in mind, and we'll cover them in detail in a later video. As for storage, here's a simple organizational and storage method that has worked well for me. I like to build chests in rows of 5 and organize my items as follows, going from right to left. In the far right box, I'll keep clothing, gear, survival items, and weapons. Next to that will be plant-based materials like cut grass, twigs, logs, reeds, and charcoal. In the middle chest will go minerals like rocks, flint, niter, and gold, as well as red, blue, and purple gems. To the left of that will be common animal products like manure, pigskin, feathers, and beefalo wool. And finally, in the far left will be monster products like gears, hound's teeth, spiderwebs, and nests, and tentacle spots. If a chest gets full, I'll just build another one below it with common items in the upper chest and rarer items in the lower chest, and so on as my stockpiles grow throughout the game. This method works well for me as I always know exactly where to look to find an item based on its type, but feel free to use whatever method works best for you. I'll also typically build another chest a bit above my fire pit, in which I'll keep tools like axes, shovels, pickaxes, and the like, as well as excess pine cones. Although these items can safely be left out on the ground, I'm a bit of a neat freak and don't like the clutter. And finally, the last topic for today is resource production near your base. It's a good idea to transplant 20 or more grass tufts and sapling trees near your base for quick and easy harvest. Grass tufts will need to be fertilized with rot or manure before they'll start growing again and periodically thereafter, whereas sapling trees do not require fertilization. As you get better at inventory management during your initial exploration, you may find it worthwhile to dig up a stack or two of each of these items even before you find a spot to build your base, particularly if you found Chester already. Or you can just gather them during later expeditionary ventures. Do note that neither grass tufts nor saplings will grow during the winter, but if you plant them early enough, you can likely get at least 2 harvests before the cold sets in. I also like to plant double rows of about 8 pine cones per row to the left and right of my lightning rod above the base, so I can chop down trees during the nighttime. It can also be a really good idea to hire some pigs now and then to chop down trees and stockpile tons of wood, usually from a nearby forest. You can also plant rows of trees by your pigs for quick harvest, and as an added bonus to this method, any tree guards that spawn will be aggroed on the pigs and not you, allowing you to fight or relocate the tree guards one at a time. Well, that's all for this episode. As noted before, a good base will be the foundation for your future adventures. There is a lot of personal preference involved in layout, what to include, and how many of the various structures, so feel free to experiment and find what works best for you. And in closing, here are a couple of later game bases created by other players to give you an idea of some of the possibilities as you learn more and survive longer in this dangerous world. As always, if you found this video helpful, informative, or at the very least somewhat entertaining, please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. The next video will cover tips, tricks, and things to be aware of that new players may not realize or discover on their own. Thanks for watching, and now get out there and don't starve!